I have suffered from asthma since I was very young, and the disease used to bother and scare me a lot. One morning, I woke up feeling a little hard to breathe and I tried hard to take deep breaths. Soon, my breathing problem became worse and I felt like something was blocking my chest, making it impossible for me to breathe properly. When my parents saw my condition, they immediately decided to take me to the hospital. After a while, my condition did not improve immediately. My breathing was still very difficult and I felt weaker and weaker, even unable to walk properly. My parents stayed by my side, giving me encouragement and support. My father carried me into the hospital. The doctors told my father that my asthma had worsened and needed immediate treatment. They gave me some medication and then put me on bed rest. At that time, I didn't know what kind of medication the doctors gave me, but I knew that my body became very relaxed. My breathing also gradually returned to normal. After a while, I felt very tired. The nurse kept trying to keep me awake, but I fell asleep. Later, when I learned what had happened, I realized how dangerous the situation was. I stopped breathing, but I'm not sure if my heart stopped beating too. I felt like I had entered a dreamlike state, as if I was caught in a nightmare from which I could not wake up. I had a very peculiar feeling as if I was in another world. I gazed at the man in the hospital bed. I couldn't see his face, but I felt as if he had some kind of connection with me. I now felt very light, as if I were floating in the air. I could see the doctors and nurses going about their business. Their figures were moving quickly through my vision. I felt my vision become unusually sharp, as if I could perceive more details and information. I now felt very calm, without the pain and fear I felt before, as if everything in the world had nothing to do with me. At the same time, I also felt a little lonely and longed to return to my family. When this thought occurred to me, I found myself standing in the kitchen of my house. My grandmother was there cooking and was frying my favorite potato pancakes. I felt so happy to see this scene. I tried to shout, but realized I had no way to make a sound. I tried to shout, but my grandmother didn't seem to be aware of my presence. This feeling made me very sad and scared. I walked towards my grandmother and tried to touch her. I hoped she would notice my presence, but my hand went straight through her shoulder. Suddenly, I was in a dark space. I didn't know where the boundaries of this space were or how I could escape out of it. There were many souls like me all around me. They were caught in this dark space just like me. We searched for a way out, but this place was like a closed space. As the time passed, I became more and more desperate. Just then, I noticed a light in the distance. I started to move toward that light source. I can't remember if I went through the tunnel. I came to the world of light. The light there was very bright, as if it were the light of life. I felt very excited and surprised because I had finally escaped from the darkness and had come to a new world full of hope and life. As I entered the light, I felt a strong sense of love. It was unlike any emotion I had ever experienced before. It was a supernatural love that made me feel at home. I felt very relaxed here. The emotion was so strong that I can't even describe it in exact words. I want to go back into the darkness and bring others here as well, but I don't know how to go back. Here, I don't feel the presence of time. I felt detached from reality, as if I had reached a dimension beyond time and space. Here, everything becomes clear. All my questions are answered accurately, including those things that had bothered me for a long time. I feel I am able to think more deeply and understand the world in a way I have never experienced before. Suddenly, a woman appeared in front of me. She seemed very friendly, as if she had known me for a long time. I felt she was more like a mentor. She had a soft glow about her, as if the air around her had become warm and comfortable. Although I didn't know who this woman was, her presence made me feel very at ease and comfortable. My mentor helped me review my past life. At first, I was a little confused. I was just a 12-year-old kid, what could I possibly have to remember? As the guide guided me, my attention shifted to the screen on the right. I saw something I had done. I was surprised to find that some small things I had done could have such a big impact on others, and that some actions that had seemed insignificant had an unexpected positive impact. One of the incidents really impressed me. There was a new student in our class. He had just immigrated here. His English was not very good, and some of his classmates used to tease him. One time, I saw that classmate was being bullied. I felt very unfair, so I went over to the classmate who was bullying him and accused him. I remember that my heart was beating fast, but I also felt a sense of courage and pride. On the screen, I saw a grateful smile on that student's face. I also saw the more profound impact this incident had on him. I saw how quickly that student integrated into the school and made more new friends. He also participated in more activities, and he clearly became more confident. I was struck by how a very small amount of help can make a huge impact on someone's life. The mentor explained that every little thing one does can accumulate into a significant force that can change the world. Never underestimate your power. These acts can inspire more kindness and compassion in people's hearts. This will inspire more people, thus creating a virtuous circle that will make the world a better place. These words touched me deeply. I began to understand that each person can change the world. My mentor finally asked me, should I return to Earth or stay here? I was in deep thought because it was a very difficult decision. I really wasn't sure if I should go back to Earth, because I felt very comfortable here. I don't know if I have made the right decision. Can you give me some advice? I asked my mentor. She replied, it's your own life and you need to make your own choices. I thought to myself that it would be nice if I could foresee my future. My mentor seemed to know my doubts, and she reassured me that I could show you a part of your future life, which might help you make a decision. I was very excited. I immediately nodded my head in agreement and looked forward to what my mentor would show me. Please follow me. The mentor led me to a room with a large screen. As I gazed at the screen, the picture began to become very clear. I saw a family, a wonderful family. The children were playing and the parents were drinking coffee. The scene was so beautiful and heartwarming that I felt I could feel that happiness. I also saw my future career and the work environment where I am. I was excited to see these because they showed the results of my hard work. My guide also showed me some of the difficulties I might encounter in the future, including my asthma. I was worried about how this would affect my life and work. My mentor told me that these difficulties can be overcome if I keep a positive attitude. Remember, some things may change later and the direction of development is entirely up to you. My mentor reminded me. I felt a little confused. Are you saying that my future is in my own hands? Yes, she nodded. Any decision you make will affect your future development. I understand, thank you for the reminder. I took a deep breath. I had made my decision. I want to go back to my family. I knew it would be challenging and difficult, but I believed I could overcome them. As I followed my guide back to the hospital, I saw my mother in the hallway. She was crying and wiping her tears with a tissue. My father, on the other hand, was holding her tightly and trying his best to comfort her. I felt very sad to see this scene. And I knew that my condition had caused them a lot of pain. I had to return to my body as soon as possible, so I rushed back to the ward. Getting back into my body was a very difficult thing to do. I tried once, but failed. The wizard told me to concentrate so that I could reconnect with my body. So I tried again and I managed to get back into my body and feel my breath and heartbeat. When I opened my eyes, I saw my mother standing next to the hospital bed and she looked very excited. Her hands were shaking, as if she didn't believe her eyes. She hugged me tightly and said excitedly, "You are finally awake." My father also came in and he was all very happy to see me awake. At that moment, I felt very happy and content. Soon I left the hospital. When I got home, I sat on the bed in my bedroom. The sun was shining through the window and illuminating the whole room. I approached the window, felt the warmth of the sun, looked at the flowers and plants outside, and felt the power of life. I felt like I had been given a second life. I thought of my future plans and goals and felt I could do anything and face any challenge. I took a deep breath. Even though it's been 13 years, when I recall the event, I can still clearly remember every detail of what happened then. I have a wonderful girlfriend now, and we have been dating for 4 years. She was a classmate of mine and we were very much in love. I got to see my future wife during that experience. Although I didn't see her face, I clearly remember that her hair was brown. My current girlfriend also has brown hair. I was convinced that she was my future wife. Even though I was plagued by asthma, I didn't let it control my life. I have learned how to cope with it, how to control it, and how to move on with my life. I believe that no matter what the future holds, I will be strong in the face of it. I will not let it be a limitation for me. I will move on and create my own future. I come from an atheistic family and have never been to church or attended any religious services since I was a child. My parents believed that religion was a fiction and they preferred us to believe in science and rational thinking. I held the same view on this and never became interested in religion. At one point, my classmate was worried that he wouldn't be able to finish school successfully and prayed often that God would help him. I told him that it was useless to pray, that he could only get good grades if he put enough effort and time into it. However, when I was 24 years old, a strange thing happened. During that time, I began to experience persistent coughing symptoms. This cough was not only frequent but also long-lasting. Sometimes it was also accompanied by chest tightness and a sore throat. The sound of coughing was also very harsh. Sometimes, I would vomit when coughing. Although I have tried various treatments, I still cannot get relief from this coughing symptom. It not only made me feel very tired and uncomfortable, but also caused me to lose my sleep quality. I often woke up at night because of my cough. I decided to go to the hospital in order to relieve my coughing symptoms. After I finished my dinner, I felt that my cough was getting worse, so I rushed to the clinic I had been to before. The doctor told me that the cough medicine I was using before was temporarily gone. But it was possible to try a new cough medicine, which he said was more effective. After listening to the doctor's advice, I decided to give it a try. Next, the doctor performed a skin test on me. After waiting for a few minutes, the test came back positive. But a red spot appeared on my hand. I was a little nervous and confused, so I asked the doctor if such a reaction was normal. After thinking for a while, the doctor told me that this reaction was normal and did not pose a threat to my health. After hearing the doctor's explanation, I believed him and decided to try this new cough medicine. When I got home, I got ready to go to bed. After a while, I heard a shrill sound, like a train passing me by. The sound got louder and louder until I was completely engulfed in the noise. I felt like my eardrums were going to explode. Then I found myself falling into a pitch-black tunnel. There was darkness all around and I couldn't see anything. I tried to feel my way out, but the tunnel seemed to have no end, and I no longer knew which direction to go. I was getting scared and started to feel desperate. I was afraid of being trapped in this dark world forever. It was like I was being pulled forward by something. It was as if I was stuck in this dark space and couldn't break free. I began to think about what was happening to me. I remembered the cough medicine I had bought at the clinic earlier and that I was probably in the middle of an allergic reaction. I felt myself being pulled by invisible forces all the way forward through the dark tunnel. There was no sound or light around me, and this state made me feel very lonely and scared. I wanted to go back to bed, but there was no way to do so. I began to wonder if I was dead, but at the same time I felt alive. My mind was very clear and I wasn't completely gone. This contradictory feeling made me feel very confused. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in front of me. I moved in the direction of the light. The light became brighter and brighter and seemed to be guiding me. I had very mixed feelings, full of curiosity and uneasiness. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I felt like this was my last chance. I reached the source of the bright light, which was a beautiful door of light. I heard some voices, but I could not understand their meaning. After entering that door, I felt myself become light, like a feather floating in the air. Any pain or discomfort I had disappeared, and instead I felt very comfortable. I can't describe in precise words what I experienced in that space, because it was beyond anything I could experience in reality. I don't know what that space was. But it made me feel unconditionally loved and accepted. An intense light suddenly appeared before my eyes, and out of it came a man. He was wearing a long white robe, which gave off a dazzling light. He had deep eyes and broad shoulders. The color of his skin looked very healthy. I noticed that he was wearing a sash around his waist, which seemed to have some kind of important symbolic meaning. He opened his arms to me, and I noticed a very obvious wound on his palm. I saw the same wound on his foot. I noticed a woman to his left. She was wearing a long blue robe. The hood of the robe covered her hair. I knew it was Jesus and Mary, and although I am not a Christian, I have seen their pictures everywhere in real life. There was still a big difference between their images and the real-life portraits. Their presence made me feel a strong sense of love. I cannot describe this feeling accurately in words, but the feeling was so real and beautiful. I walked over to them. I greeted them. "Hello, my friend," Jesus answered me gently, with eyes full of love. "I am not a Christian, but I know you are Jesus. Why did I meet you here?" He smiled and replied, "I have been with you all along, but you may not have realized it. I come to you to bring you peace and tranquility." I was a little confused, but at the same time I felt a wonderful sense of closeness. Jesus and I talked a lot there. I asked Jesus, "Why do we have different religious beliefs?" He replied, "Faith is just a form, and I am the embodiment of love and truth. I love you no matter what you believe in, and I want you to love others in the same way." I asked Jesus, why do so many people pray to him when they are in trouble? I have met many people who have had a difficult life and prayed religiously, but their lives did not change at all. Jesus' eyes were tender and deep as he smiled and replied to me, I am with you all the time, watching over you. Prayer is not meant to make life immediately better, but to enable you to find inner peace and the strength of faith. To give you the courage to face the difficulties and challenges of life. His words touched my heart deeply. I was silent for a moment. Then asked him, if you are always there for us, why does so much pain and suffering still occur? Jesus' eyes gazed at me, and he smiled and replied, those sufferings are not given by me, but are caused by human beings themselves. But I will always be with you to give you the strength and courage to overcome them. He went on to say, I also want to take you to someone who is waiting for you in heaven. We arrived instantly at a beautiful garden. I saw an old man who looked very healthy and had a smile on his face. I recognized that it was my grandfather. I ran to his side and he hugged me gently. He told me how happy he was to see me again. He was also grateful that Jesus had brought me so that he could see me in person. My grandfather told me that he had been praying for me in heaven to live a happy and joyful life. Grandfather laughed and talked to me about something from my childhood. Grandfather said, you were such a naughty boy when you were little. I still remember one time you were catching dragonflies in the garden and ended up accidentally knocking over many flower pots. At that time you tried to run away, but I caught you and told you to go back and clean up the flower beds. You always did things like that, and your heart was always full of curiosity. I felt a little ashamed when I heard these words. I admitted to him that I had indeed been naughty as a child, but now that I was a grown-up, I knew better how to make wise decisions and act. My grandfather looked at me and smiled. I felt endless love and warmth in my grandfather's company. I thanked Jesus for bringing me to see my grandfather. During my conversation with my grandfather, I not only felt his love and support, but also learned many valuable life lessons and wisdom from his words. He told me that if we maintain a positive attitude and strong faith, we can overcome any difficulties. My grandfather also told me that we should not focus only on our own needs and desires, but should spend more time with our families. Finally Jesus said to me, it's time to go back. I knew he was referring to going back to real life. Although I thought it was really great here, I also understood that I still had a lot of things I needed to do. I took a deep breath and then said goodbye to my grandfather. Before I left, my grandfather hugged me tightly and said to me, I will always be here for you. I turned around and saw Jesus beside me, smiling at me. I felt calm and relaxed because I knew he would always be there for me. I nodded to Jesus and followed him out of my grandfather's garden. I turned my head and saw my grandfather waving at me from the garden. I smiled at him and then followed Jesus out. Jesus took me to my bedroom. He gently tapped me on the shoulder and I returned to my body. Finally, I felt my eyes begin to grow heavy. I closed my eyes and felt my body gradually sink into the soft mattress. With Jesus by my side, I went into a dream full of hope and beauty and did not wake up until early the next morning. I didn't blame the doctor. I know that without this medical error this experience would not have happened. I didn't tell anyone else about it either. After this experience, I had a new understanding of the meaning of life and the value of life. I began to seek a higher level of spirituality and spiritual guidance to help me better understand and face the challenges of life. In this process, through my study of the Bible, I was gradually drawn to the teachings and beliefs of Christianity. I saw it as a religious faith that could provide me with spiritual guidance and solace. After being baptized, I became a devout Christian. I began to attend church activities and meetings, actively study the Bible and pray. Under the guidance of my faith, I learned how to love, forgive and care for others. I felt the strength of my faith sustaining me and making me more determined to face the challenges and difficulties in my life. The faith and teachings of Christianity have also helped me understand the true meaning and value of life. I learned that everyone is God's creation and has his or her own mission and purpose, regardless of our background and status. We should all care for others and bring hope to them. Overall, after experiencing this incident, I became a devout Christian and faced the challenges and difficulties in my life through faith. Faith has made me value and appreciate life more and has made me a better person.